and the secrets of the stars. But my story begins with my Apache grandfather. Many people are aware that in 1947, in the summer, depending upon the reports, there is a purported crash of a disk near Roswell, New Mexico. It's become a very famous incident now. A lot of people think that it was a fake, it was a hoax, and other people are convinced. At this point, I do not seek to argue, save to say that more happened on that summer than research and UFO writers have written about. It is astonishing to me personally that if a UFO researcher really wants to know the truth about crashes, about incidents that occur out in the field, in the forest, or in the desert, it's interesting to me that they do not pursue the people who live in the desert, who live in the forest, who live out in the wilderness. In Australia, I would suggest they should go to the Aborigine. In Mexico, they should go to the Mexican Indians. And in the United States, wouldn't it be a smart thing to do to go to the Native Americans who live out in the desert, who live in the forest, who'd rather spend a night under the stars than to spend the night covered with a roof? Well, it seems that this one tiny little detail, this one little thought, has eluded most UFO researchers. Because had they gone to the reservations, had they gone to the outback of New Mexico, they would have been able to find a far different story. The rumors in the Southwest about the summer of 1947 are plentiful. They do not speak about just one crash near Roswell. In fact, they speak of 3 crashes. The first crash occurred in early June near Socorro. When this last year, a film was released about an alien autopsy, the European marketers began to sell it under a Roswell name. It is my opinion that they did so in order to be able to market the video. As soon as I heard about this alien autopsy film, I was handed some stills from the internet of the alien on the autopsy table. I refused to watch that film when it was first aired on national television, as did many other Native Americans, because several of those of us who were able to see these stills beforehand recognized the figure. I am sure that none of you would want to watch one of your loved ones, one of your family, or an elder in your family on an autopsy table being taken apart. Many Native Americans are aware that that figure on that table was not one of the beings taken from the Roswell crash. That being came from the Socorro crash fully 1 month earlier. Having seen the stills, I immediately sent a fax to a gentleman in Germany suggesting to him that they had made an error, a heinous error, that this was not a Roswell crash, this was a Socorro crash. Interestingly enough, they immediately called back wanting to know how we knew. We knew because the rumors in the Southwest spoke often about the Socorro crash. And so I am suggesting not only was there a crash in Roswell in July, there was a crash in June in Socorro, and there was also a crash in August near the Four Corners area of that very, very same summer. And it is this third crash that begins my story and reveals how I got tied into research on UFOs, on the hidden history of planet Earth. In the summer of 1947, 6 Native American men from differing tribes, all of them friends, having grown up together, had decided to go out into the desert near the Four Corners area to go on a vision quest. Now, a vision quest is a very, very personal endeavor. It is an attempt to learn something about self. On occasion, it is to get a glimpse into the future, to see what one's path may lead them to. At times it is about finding out a difficulty or a problem that exists within the soul, exists within the spirit. In this case, these 6 young men were camping out in the desert, preparing themselves for a several days vision quest. In the late evening, while gathered around the campfire, they suddenly looked up, and there was a streak that came across the sky. But it was very low, very close. Now, I should advise you that in the Southwest, dancing stars is part of the mythology, part of the cosmology of every youngster's life. We grow up with stories about dancing stars. We grow up with stories about star beings and star people who have descended from the heavens to teach us. We have stories about Kachinas, about Yebiches. We have numerous stories. Probably half of the cosmology of most Native American tribes in the West addresses the idea of star beings who have descended to Earth to teach us to be good human beings, to teach us to be warriors, to teach us the wrong way and the right way. And so these 6 men, looking up into the sky, see a streak flash over their heads. However, instead of continuing on and disappearing over the horizon, it simply disappeared over the hill, and with a loud, thunderous boom, the sky lit up, there were sparks, and a glow remained in the air. They looked at each other, and with the foolishness of young men, they decided to run over the hillside to see if they could find the fallen star. The rumors about falling stars have existed for a long time on the reservation. Many people will whisper to one another, if you see a falling star come to Earth, stay away. Do not go, for the soldiers appear very quickly. And if you are there, oftentimes you do not come back. And so these 6 men, ignoring the rumors, believing that the crash of this star was part of their vision quest, they proceeded in the middle of the night to go headlong into the forest and to try to find the glowing star. Well, they did. After just a few miles in the darkness, they came over a hill, and there below them in a wash was the disk. Still glowing, heated red hot, the creosote was smoldering, some of the trees were scorched, and there were 2 enormous pieces lying in the wash. 2 of the men were designated the lookouts. They would remain on the hill to see if they could see the soldiers arriving in the distance. The other 4 decided to go down and to look through the debris, to look through the wreckage. This is not what they had expected. They were expecting some sort of a star, but in fact, it was a ship. It wasn't an airplane, but it was a ship. As the 4 began to scurry through the wreckage, it didn't take long before the 2 lookouts screamed to them, "Baod lohe, baod lohe." They're coming. The soldiers are coming. The 4 young men who were down in the wash immediately began to gather up what they could, little souvenirs, and as they started to leave, one of them, named Midnight, noticed something. There were tiny little feet sticking out from under the wreckage. The metal was red hot, but he was able to push it up with his shoulder as one of his friends, Lindo, reached in and pulled the little figure out. As the others came up to see what had happened, they noticed that there were other bodies just to the right of them in the distance. The 2 lookouts came scurrying down the hill, yelling at them, "It's time to go, vamonos, vamonos." The 6 of them stood there momentarily looking at this tiny little figure. And without hesitation, they decided to take this star being, the survivor of the ship, of the crash, and take him to their Vision Quest camp. By tradition, a Vision Quest camp is kept hidden. It is a secret even to families, so that they will not be interrupted in any way when they pursue their quest. As the soldiers were coming around the hill, 2 of the young men took the being and headed directly for camp. The other 4 are designated conejos, the rabbits. It is their task to be the decoys, to distract the soldiers and to take them away from the direction of the camp and to keep them from the star being that they had rescued. It succeeded. The soldiers were misled, and all 6 were able to get away. Hours later, the six gathered together in the Vision Quest camp. There, they looked down, and there was a star being at their feet. Now, I know that this might sound odd. I know that this might sound strange. But it's a true story. Native Americans believe star beings exist, not because they have great faith, not because they believe the storytellers, but because, in fact, they have experiences. They have actual contact. I will suggest to you that if any legitimate researcher is able to take the time to work his way into the company of one of the elders, of one of La Viejitas, one of the elder women who lives in the outback, and if he were to take the time to develop a friendship, she would begin to share stories with him about her own experiences. Many of the elder women to this day tell stories about how as young children, as little girls, they played with some of these beings. There are some beings that you play with and some that you leave alone. There's a wonderful story of Viejita just recently told us. A researcher who had wanted to find out something about the story, something about this old woman, went to speak to her after several months of ingratiating himself. And he asked her, well, which ones are you afraid of? And she said, oh, the lizard ones.